And without further ado, I think we'll just go ahead and get started. Today presenting, we have Alicia Tanksley, an account manager with ActionFlow, just celebrating 4 years with ActionFlow. Is that correct?
Yep. Yep.
All right. I think this week or just
It was
recently. So, a
Monday.
seasoned professional, and you'll be in good hands today. So,
Well, hi everyone. So glad that you are able to join us today. What we're going to go over are best practices for updating your SKUs. So this is really geared toward those of you who are already ActionFlow users and administrators in your account. But you're welcome to stay. It's always good to learn best practices. The reason we are going over best practices is as we get toward the end of the year, everybody's looking at financials from the previous year, looking at your price lists, and we want to give you the best ways to update your pricing without affecting any current estimates or invoices that you have. So we don't want to, quote somebody a $1,500 kitchen and then we turn around and bill them and we've raised prices and they now owe us $1,700. Customers generally don't like that very much. So I'm going to go through this, and the first thing I have here is updating your SKUs. So in ActionFlow, you can update your SKUs whenever you want. Anyone that's an administrator in your account can go in and update those. And updates may be required when you're getting new material price lists from vendors, when you're reviewing costs and planning for a new year. And so we want you to be able to follow best practices to ensure that no estimates and invoices are changed inadvertently. So any users, like I said, that have administrative access can adjust SKUs. Our SKU page in the back is divided into two sides. There's one side of the page that has all of your SKU classes and SKU line items. And then the right-hand side of the screen also has your price list. So those are the two differences between the left side of the screen and the right side of the screen when you're back looking at your SKU page. In ActionFlow, you have the ability to create multiple price lists. So you could have one price list, you may have 10 price lists, depending on how you've chosen to set that up. When you're updating your revenue, you will want to make sure that you're in the correct price list. You don't want to go through your price list for builders and then find you put all retail prices in. You do have the ability when you open that, you have a drop down and it's a list of all of those price lists you have, and you can easily select which one you want to load. Just a quick heads up, price lists have a lot of data in them. And so when you're switching between price lists or when you're copying and duplicating a price list, it can take a second. So when you're back there and you're moving from price list to price list, it's important to be a little patient with the system as all that data loads in. Best practices for updating SKUs. So we have two methods that we recommend when you're updating your SKUs, depending on how you are, how many really you're updating. If you are making blanket changes to an entire price list, that would be different than if you are simply adjusting the revenue on 2 or 3 line items. So we're going to go over both methods for this. And the first method would be to actually copy a price list. This would be what you would want to do if you were updating a whole lot of SKUs in your price list for the coming year, or maybe you had a mid-year review, but you're making some fairly significant changes. And what we'll do at that point is you'll actually select your price list, and you can see I've selected our retail price list that we have in our demo account. Once you have that selected, you can actually use this feature at the top, and you can copy your price list with this little duplicate button. Once you've copied the price list, you can give it a new name, a new description if you need to. You can then go through and adjust every SKU's revenue in this unit revenue column through your whole price list. As long as you copy the price list and only adjust the copied one, you will not affect any existing estimates or invoices. Once you've got your price list set with your new prices that you want, you've renamed it, you can then go to your old one and uncheck this box. That's the active box. What that does is your old price list will no longer show up in your drop-down price list in your area module, but it will still be there for all of the quotes that were created using that price list. And if anybody has any questions at any time, please feel free to put those in the chat, and Josiah will make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, so that would be method one. Copy the price list, make all your adjustments in your new copy, and inactivate your old price list. The second method would be to be able to discontinue prices. This would be something you want to do if maybe you're only changing your labor. You're going to change what you charge for your labor rates, and so you don't really want to create a whole new list. We just want to update that. And so what we do is you would select that line item, and here you can see I've got this tear out laminate line item highlighted. And then you can go in and actually put in a discontinued date. So you can see here, this one was active from January 1 of 2000 through January 1 of 2024, which would be a really long time to go without updating your prices. I don't think we would recommend 24 years, but it's just a good example for right now. Then once you've done that, you will add a second line item, the same line item. You just add it again. So you can see here there's laminate tear out for both of those. Once I've added that SKU line item in again, I put a new start date on the new one. So this one has a start date of January 2nd, 2024. Any quotes that are created on or after January 2nd, 2024 will have the new price. Any estimates that are created before that will have the old price. And so that is how you can update using that option. So you have your first method, which is to copy your price list, and you have your second method, which is to discontinue SKUs and then add them in again and set a new price. Finally, we have some tips and tricks from the tool dropdown. You may not know this, but you do have the ability in ActionFlow to adjust multiple SKUs by a percentage. So if you wanted to increase all of your labor line items by 10%, we have a very fast way for you to do that. This is your tools dropdown in the back of ActionFlow in your on the price list side of your SKU page. These allow you to set multiple SKU items and adjust them by a percentage. So if you were going to, if you had new items that you had added and you wanted to add them to a price list, you can actually come in and using this top button, you can set the revenue for those SKUs equal to the cost that you have added on the left-hand side of your screen, and then simply raise it by a percentage. So if you wanted to make the revenue 10% above cost, you could use this button, put in 10% here, and then select your SKUs and click this button, and it will adjust the price on those SKUs by 10%. At this, just using that same method, you can also set a revenue. You can adjust based off the current revenue. So if you had current labor costs and you wanted to raise them by 15% for next year, you can use this button, select those SKUs, and it will adjust what from their current revenue. So if you had $20 and you wanted to raise it by, 10%, then it would automatically adjust it to 22 when you use this feature. There is one more at the bottom. It's really limited for anybody that's using the retail side of calc types. This would be if you are doing big box, you're doing a lot of Lowe's or Home Depot, IKEA, and you can actually, this allows you to do the same things, but on the retail column. It's a column we don't usually turn on unless you have, unless you're doing third-party selling. So those are just some quick buttons. I'm going to point out one or two more buttons that are on this screen. One is this compiled cost definitions. If you needed to run an entire price list out of ActionFlow and see every line item you have in that price list and all the revenue, you can click this. It will create it in an Excel spreadsheet for you. And then you have the ability to go through that and really see how you have your price list set up. The other one is this button. It's the compare multiple price lists. If you want to be able to see the revenue for your retail, your builders, and maybe your kitchen and bath all at one time, you can click this button and select which price list you want to see. And then you can actually adjust all of the different prices and all of the different price lists at the same time. There is definitely a load time on the multiple price lists as well, just because of the amount of data it's pulling in. So if you're using that, or when you're copying price lists or changing price lists, there is a little bit of you just have to be a little patient as those load in. And those are the best practices for updating SKUs in ActionFlow. That was very quick. I hope, I really hope there are lots of questions. But if you are looking to do this and you need more information, or if you want a little more in-depth assistance, the ActionFlow knowledge base on our website, actionflow.net, is a wonderful tool to go to when you are needing to look up anything in regards to ActionFlow. You also can contact your dedicated account manager. We are more than happy to help and walk you through the steps that you need to update your price lists whenever you need it. Any questions in the chat?
Thanks, Alicia. So far, no questions. I'll leave it open here for a little bit for those to come through.
Sorry.
I was gonna put the link to that knowledge base, and specifically the SKU section of the knowledge base, in the chat there. I'll also send it out with the follow-up email and the slides if anyone has any further questions or wants to investigate further. But we'll leave it open for another minute or two of questions, and if not, we'll assume Alicia did an excellent job presenting, and no questions were needed.
Alicia, this is Roderick from Fabricator's Choice.
Hi.
I'm going to add some things to what you've done. You've done a great job. Thank you. Appreciate it. I just wanted to point out in the tools of the price list, you touched on the compiled cost definitions. There's another purpose for that that I think is very powerful. And that is you're about to make changes to your price list. And let's say you got a dozen changes you need to make. I would suggest that you compile the cost definitions of the price list you're about to manage and then export it to Excel and tuck it away. You will not be able to see all the fields, but you can definitely turn on the ones that are critical, like your unit revenue and things of that nature. And heaven forbid, if you make a mistake on that price list and someone discovers it a day or two later, at least you've got a backup copy that you can refer to and use as a reference point of what it looked like before you started making your changes. So I would highly recommend that compiled cost definitions be used liberally whenever you're about to make changes to an existing price list. Outside of that,
that's
I
really
think
good advice.
you covered the ground quite well.
Oh, thank you.
All right, got a question in the chat here.
Okay.
Are you seeing it, Alicia?
I'm about to.
Okay.
Only way to add a SKU or override is with admin rights. So you can add, so there is a feature you can turn on where you can allow users to add SKUs in the area module. That is something that you can set by, I'm pretty sure that's by user and not by role. But you can allow, for instance, you can allow your sales reps to add a SKU from simply being in the area module if the color doesn't exist. They do not have to be an administrator to do it from there. But to access the SKU page in full in the back, you do have to be an administrator. And then, okay, here the question is, if you have the SKU items but need to only change one or two prices, do you change them back in the SKU items section or in the cost definition section? If you are changing the cost to your company, in other words, the amount of money it costs you for that, then you would want to change it on the left-hand side in the cost for that SKU item. If you are changing the revenue or what you are charging to the customer, then you want to change it on the right-hand side in the price list.
Right.
It's the most uncomfortable part of a webinar is the silence at the end.
Well, we won't make everyone suffer any longer. Then we'll just wrap it up there. If you have questions, you know how to get a hold of us. And thank you all for coming. We will be in touch shortly.